Hey, this is JR, aka The Tourist. I'm inviting you to join me as I spend 24 hours in Jakarta, Indonesia. I'll start up north at the historic Old Town, then head down to central Jakarta, and finally have a look at the skyscrapers of South Jakarta and sample some of the city's nightlife. This is by no means an exhaustive itinerary. It's only a brief look at how you might spend a day here in Jakarta. I stayed at the Park Hyatt Jakarta, one of the city's newest and best hotels. It's a great example of the kind of luxury that's on offer here in Jakarta. This morning I'm headed to Kota Tua, Old Town. Jakarta's traffic is notorious and public transportation options are limited. Lucky for me, the commuter line from Bogor has a stop right near the Park Hyatt, and it runs to Old Jakarta Station. The city has recently opened several train lines, including a commuter rail and a subway. There's even an express train from the airport. But getting around by public transport remains spotty and depends on where you are. From the station, it's a short walk to Rea Square, the center of Jakarta's Old Town. If you want to see the square live with people, try coming here at night. But me, I've come to Old Town for the museums. I'll start with the Museum Mandiri. The museum sits in what was formerly the Indonesian branch of the Netherlands Trading Society, the Dutch financial institution that was charged with promoting and financing trade throughout the Dutch colonial holdings. The museum has a collection of vintage banking props, but I'm here to better understand Indonesia's colonial history. The bank's exhibits highlight how under Dutch rule, Indonesia was forced to operate as an export economy. The museum also has some oddly creepy exhibits. When I walked into this room, the music just started playing. And there's a boardroom on the second floor that looks like it's where the Illuminati might meet. Beyond history, the Mandiri Museum is an excellent example of Art Deco architecture, and you can find some great old pictures of the area. Right next to the Mandiri Museum is the Bank of Indonesia Museum. Again, banking museums may sound a bit dry, and they certainly aren't for everyone. But if you're a history buff, you won't want to miss this one. It also continues the theme of creepy exhibits. Next, let's head back to the square and check out the Warong Museum. Much Warong is based on tales from the Hindu epics, but here you can see the form has been kept alive through more contemporary stories. There's also exhibits of gamelan instruments. Gamelan music is the traditional accompaniment for Warong. There's also a museum of Jakarta's history in the old Stadhouse, but I'm skipping this one for now. It's lunchtime. Started my day here in Kota Tua. That's the Old Town. This area sits in the footprint of the original Dutch fort. The Dutch called this Batavia, and right now I'm in front of Batavia Cafe, which is a landmark here in Kota Tua. So I'm going to go inside and get a cup of coffee and see if the food is any good. The Cafe Batavia sits in the second oldest building on the square. The building was constructed in 1805 as accommodation for high-ranking officials of the Dutch East India Company. Over the years, the building has been used as a residence, as offices, even an art gallery. While relatively new, the restaurant captures the historical feeling of Jakarta's Old Town. I had an iced coffee with palm sugar, an Indonesian specialty, and nasi goreng topped with a fried egg and served with some skewers of beef tongue. Even though this is a very popular spot for tourists, I found the food quite flavorful and delicious. If you're here at peak meal hours, there can be quite a line, so call ahead and make a booking. After eating, I decided to walk a bit. Mind you, Jakarta is not exactly a walkable city, but I find there's no better way to get the feel of a place. The Dutch established Batavia in 1619 after driving out the English, their colonial rivals. The city expanded southward in the 18th and 19th centuries. After Indonesia gained its independence, the recently renamed Jakarta became the new nation's capital. Indonesia's first president, Sukarno, began a program of improving and expanding the city. Sukarno built new roads, he built the country's first grand hotel, and he built the city's first department store, the Serena, named after one of Sukarno's wives. But if we're going to talk about central Jakarta, we might as well start at the very center. Yes, I'm sure your country has some large phallic monument celebrating its dominance and projecting its virality high into the air. But is the one in your country playing a drum solo? This is Monas, the Indonesian national monument, which sits in the middle of Merdeka Square. Merdeka is Indonesia for independence. Under Dutch rule, this space was populated by government buildings. Sukarno razed the site and erected this 132-meter monument topped by a flame covered in gold leaf. If you're coming to see the monument, it's best to enter the square from the northeast gate. From the entrance, you proceed through a long underground hallway that spits you out just under the monument. You can go to the top of the monument, but by the time I'd arrived, all the tickets from the observation deck had been sold out. So I simply toured the National History Museum in the hall below the monument. Please pardon the interruption as I take a tour through Indonesia's history, courtesy of the dioramas displayed in the hall. Humans have inhabited the Indonesian archipelago for 45,000 years. Its strategic position on sea lanes has made for flourishing inter-island and international trade. From the 7th century CE, Indonesia was home to a series of Hindu and Buddhist kingdoms. Perhaps the largest of these, the Majapahit Empire. Gajah Mada, a Majapahit leader, once made a famous pledge to eat no spices in his food until he had unified all of the islands of the archipelago under Majapahit rule. He wasn't exactly successful, but his pledge persists as a metaphor for Indonesian unification. Eventually, Europeans arrived. First the Portuguese and then the Dutch, who established the Dutch East India Company in 1602. The Dutch fought a series of wars with local leaders, and Dutch rule only really consolidated in the early 20th century, and was disrupted when the Japanese invaded and occupied Indonesia during World War II. The occupation allowed pre-war nationalist sentiments to coalesce. After the war, the Dutch tried to reoccupy Indonesia, resulting in the Indonesian War of Independence, which ended in 1949 with the establishment of the Republic of the United States of Indonesia. Sukarno, whom we mentioned earlier, ruled Indonesia under the principle of guided democracy, a particular form of nationalism that tried to balance the influences of the socialist and capitalist worlds. In 1965, some members of the military staged a coup in which they killed 6 top army generals whom they accused of planning to overthrow Sukarno. In response, General Suharto seized power and put down the coup. In the official history, Sukarno gave his blessing to Suharto, and the people demanded that the Communist Party of Indonesia be banned. What followed was a major purge of communists and suspected communists that left between 500,000 and 1 million people dead. That history is disputed, but Suharto remained in power until 1998. This is one of the friendliest countries I've visited. Everywhere I went in Indonesia, I saw people gathered, sitting with friends and family, sharing meals and conversations. Seeing Indonesia today, it's hard to imagine how such atrocities could have happened here. From Rea Square, it's a quick walk over to Pasar Baru, the new market. New meaning it was built in 1820. On the way, we'll pass the Istiqlal Mosque and the Jakarta Cathedral. Pasar Baru was originally home to predominantly Chinese merchants, who were later joined by silk and fabric traders from India. At one point, this was the premier shopping area for Jakarta's middle and upper classes. Over the years, Jakarta's economic heart has migrated southward, as we'll see in a moment. Hey, I'm back in my hotel right now in central Jakarta. I'm on the 27th floor. One of the things that's really apparent when you're up at this level is just how polluted this city can get. It reminds me of other cities I've been in, like Istanbul, where the pollution it kind of grates on you, and you can imagine that if you lived here without a place to escape to every once in a while, it might be a bit too much. But the traffic is much better than I thought it was going to be. Between that and the train system, I've been able to move around the city pretty easily. So, got that going for me. At street level, though, I gotta say, Jakarta is a wonderful city. I mean, the things you see, the people, the architecture, there's a lot of greenery. I mean, this city just has a really wonderful energy. It's not unlike other big Southeast Asian cities, but at the same time, I feel like it's that plus something. I don't know. It just feels kind of supercharged. But I've only been here a couple of days, so these are just brief impressions. A common theme of Jakarta videos I've seen on YouTube is surprise at how modern and how shiny Jakarta is. Those people are almost always talking about the Sudirman Central Business District, home to Jakarta's newest skyscrapers and deluxe hotels and retail and night. If you don't choose to stay in central Jakarta, you'll probably want to stay here in the SCBD or one of the surrounding areas of South Jakarta. One of the SCBD's centerpieces is the Pacific Place Mall, where you can find all of the usual suspects in luxury brands, as well as some unexpected flash. I'm not much of a luxury shopper, but I did manage to find a pretty good cup of coffee. South Jakarta is also home to some of the city's best nightlife. There's Henshin, which is a multi-venue spot atop the building holding the Westin Hotel. I stopped by early hoping to catch the sunset, but Jakarta's traffic stymied that plan. I did have a cocktail and enjoyed the view. Pick your spots wisely and don't expect to do too much bar hopping, as the traffic down here is no joke. Bar du Basque is another popular spot for dinner and cocktails. Later at night it picks up a dance vibe, but I had moved on before that to check out Beer Hall, which does craft beer, cocktails, food, and live music. I like Indonesian food, but I wasn't very adventurous with my eating during this trip. I mainly got my local food fix at my hotel breakfast. The Park Hyatt has a great one featuring a buffet as well as an a la carte menu. Thanks for watching, and please stay tuned for future videos.